What is up, my peepholes? This is your guy, Kalai, and welcome back to Budget Buys. Today, I'm going to be taking a look at a Bluetooth speaker. I know I haven't done one of these in a while, but Five Below has had quite the excess of them recently, thanks to the holiday season, and this one really stood out to me. This is the Hover wireless speaker from Bass Jaxx. You know, the people that make about 95% of the audio tech you'll find at Five Below. And after playing around with it for a little bit, I've got a couple of opinions. First off though, let's talk about the specs listed on the box. One of the first things you'll see is the color-changing LED logo. They've actually been slapping this on everything that they've got a color-changing LED in because they want you to know. And I've got some stuff to say about that later. And as for the other important information, let me flip the box and zoom in really quick. Alright, here's the bottom of the box, and as you can see, it's basically identical to every other Bluetooth speaker sold by Five Below since around November 2017. I'm being so specific because that's when I bought my Blast Bluetooth Cube, and as of that time, they were using 40mm audio drivers, as opposed to the 52mm audio drivers being favored these days. The other important bits of information are the fact that it has a 1.5 hour charging time, a battery life of 1.5 to 2 hours, a rechargeable 3.7 volt lithium ion battery, a Bluetooth range of 32.8 feet, and Bluetooth version 4.2. Two other pieces of information missing from the box are the fact that it is a 3-watt speaker, that's listed on the bottom of the speaker, and the battery is rated at 300 milliamp hours. You'll find that in the manual, and I've got a lot to say about that later on. But let's zoom back out and show you the speaker itself. And there you go. Now, I did a little bit of digging prior to recording this video, and from what I can tell, this design is based on some that are being sold by multiple manufacturers for around $15 to $25. And based on all of the product photos I saw, they did not do the best job emulating. I can tell you that. First off, the original speakers have a much glossier plastic, and it looks like they used a thicker plastic because, at least with the black speaker here, it is a bit translucent to the point where I don't know if you can see it in this light, but if I'm using this in just a regular lit room, the plastic looks more like a sun-bleached black, almost dark gray. I'm not the biggest fan of that. And something tells me if I were to get one of the white speakers, it would be almost translucent. It just does not feel like they invested a lot in the R&D of at least the shell. Also, on this little guy, you can see it right here and all around the edges. You've got the screw holes. This is not something present on the actual product, but it's kind of unique to this little thing, and I am not a fan. If it were me, I would have put the screws in the base and just left this be. Use some clips to hold this in place, because I think that actually might just be holding this down. So do the main structural stuff down here, clips around here, and you'll be better for it. Or at the very least, put a little plug in there that kind of follows the spherical form. Yes, you're going to have a slight seam, but it won't be as blatant that they cheaped out. This reminds me more of some of the action figures you can get at dollar stores where they have screw holes in the back as opposed to being a solid molded piece, and sometimes they don't even paint the back. If you want some good examples of that, you should check out the Poundland specials on Ashen's channel. And speaking of features that I'm not a fan of, and this is true for both the original and this piece, and that's this big overhanging part. Yes, it's meant to give it more of a spherical, futuristic design, but ultimately what you end up with is something blocking your audio driver, and while the original might be able to get away with that due to using better quality materials and parts, not so much here. It's already got a slightly underpowered audio driver, and the fact that you've got chintzy plastic that's probably going to vibrate and lose some of your audio fidelity before it even leaves the speaker, you don't want more obstacles to good sound. Yes, it does have this little domed piece here that's meant to deflect the audio outwards, but I'm gonna say it's not doing a great job based on the testing I've done previously. Now, at the start of this video, I did point out that this claims to have a color-changing LED, and it turns out they went with a proper one as opposed to the red, green, blue flashers from the Halo speaker a while back. This is more akin to the Blast Bluetooth Cube and the gaming mouse I covered not too long ago. However, while I do applaud them for using the proper part this time, I'm not as impressed as I used to be, mainly because I bought a pack of 100 of those LEDs for a whopping $1.50. That's one of the smaller lots that you can buy, so if you're buying these LEDs on an industrial scale, the price difference between these and just a standard LED is negligible at best, so they really don't get any credit there. And speaking of ordering parts on an industrial scale, and this actually relates back to something I mentioned earlier in the video where all the specs are exactly the same, I think they're using the exact same parts in each and every one of these speakers and just changing out the shell and maybe reflashing the motherboards because it does give you the proper product name. But other than that, they've mass ordered and are just shoving everything in here, and that kind of explains why we've seen a significant drop-off in battery life recently. Now, I haven't been able to prove that up until now because I have a horrible habit of just chucking everything related to these speakers into the trash after I finish up recording and take my thumbnail pic, though I do have a box of Bluetooth speakers lying around that are probably going to end up as gifts at some point. But I was digging through some of my junk the other day and I found the first Five Below Bluetooth speaker that I ever bought. It wasn't for a review, it was just because I needed a portable speaker on the go, and I noticed something. While they've stopped listing the milliamp hours on the boxes and on the speakers themselves, this little guy is the smoking gun. Because like I said, I feel like they're just installing the exact same parts in different shells every single time. If we flip it over, I'll bring it in closer. Maybe I should just zoom it in. Actually, give me 1 second and I will zoom it in. And here you have it, the reason why the battery life has been dropping off so drastically. While this does use the 40mm audio driver from back in the day, the battery capacity is listed as 300 milliamp hours, the same as the hover speaker. Now, I did a little bit of math, rough math mind you, but math nonetheless, and I found that the area of the 52mm audio driver is about 1.7 times that of the 40mm driver. And while, yes, I didn't do it properly due to the fact that I calculated it as if both were discs as opposed to bowls, which would have been more appropriate, it still shows the reason behind the power drop. You're moving a significant amount of additional mass as well as all of that extra air, so you're going to have an appropriate battery life drop-off. I also did a little bit of extra digging on some industrial supply websites, and it turns out if you buy the quantity I believe Bass Jaxx or whomever is actually manufacturing these speakers is, the price difference between a 40mm driver and a 52mm driver is negligible, if not non-existent, hence why there's been that upgrade. But interestingly, the same can be said for a 600 milliamp hour battery as opposed to a 300 milliamp hour battery. They upgraded in one area but stagnated in another and reduced the overall quality of their goods. Wasn't a bright move. And before you say anything, the size of the batteries is pretty similar. You've got a lot of free space inside these speakers, so the size upgrade for a 600 milliamp hour battery, negligible to say the least. Anyway, let's zoom out and switch over to the audio test. Okay, I've got the speaker hooked up to my phone, my AT2020 plugged in, and my song selected. But before we do the test, let's just look at one thing really quick. Let me turn off my lights and admire the LED. It actually is the proper color changer. So, like I said, I give them credit for that, but the price point for those LEDs is no longer surprising to me. Anyway, let's get the lights back on and get the song started. Now, I'm starting this song a little bit further along so we can get immediately two parts with bass and treble. So let's see how this sounds. that's how the Hover speaker sounds. Now, admittedly, it is not the worst sounding $5 Bluetooth speaker I've checked out, but at the same time, it is nowhere near the best. That honor kinda goes to the Gradient that I recovered not too long ago, thanks to its robust build and lack of something covering the audio driver. As for my impressions of the audio quality, especially in this song and others I've tested, the bass is kind of muddy, the treble is very weak, and overall, I'm just not impressed. Add to that the fact that the battery life has been significantly chopped thanks to supply-side stupidity in not ordering bigger batteries, and overall, I can't suggest this speaker as a good buy. They've got a glut of Bluetooth speakers sitting at Five Below right now thanks to the holiday season, and there are many more and better ones to choose from. Now, admittedly, they don't sell the Gradient anymore, but you can get the Gradient Plus, which is basically this, but taller. It's actually the proper knockoff of what this is meant to emulate. So look to those other speakers if you need a last-minute gift, a replacement for a speaker you broke, or heck, maybe just one you don't mind losing or breaking on a trip. Just give the Hover a pass. Now, I've got a lot of mics to get back to reviewing, so until next time, this is your guy, Cly, signing off.